follow some guidelines along with the PowerPoint, and then we're going to just have some discussions. Does that sound good? Sound good to everybody? Perfect. Larry Hilliard, you're going to be my voice of reason behind me, okay? Sound good? I'm going to share my screen, and we're just going to kind of get started if that's okay. All right. Everybody got this PowerPoint? Thumbs up. Good. So here's the main ideas that we're going to work through today. We're going to look at our perspective regarding how do we bulletproof our transactions? How do we make sure that we're getting things to close? So instant poll right here. Has anyone had DFT in the last month? Raise your hand.
Hey, Jay, you're also on this. We can see your whole demo.
That's fine.
Okay.
I don't care. I'm not secretive. That way I'm able to see the next, because I'm not going to hit every slide because it's a lot, believe me. And as we discussed last week, some of these slides are, I mean, it was written in 2010, so they're not quite as useful as we would today. So we're going to do perspective. We're going to look at inspections and repairs. We're going to talk about appraisals, loan approvals and funding, contingencies, co-oping and communication is probably the biggest thing right now. And then deadlines and bulletproofing strategies, okay? Sound good? Anyone have this issue before? Owners feel like they're selling too little and buyers feel like they're paying too much? Hope all day gave me the thumbs up. Anyone else? Are we seeing that in today's market? Okay, Misty. Good. Okay. Is that a prevalent attitude? Is that always in every market, or is that predominantly in a shifting market because things are moving quickly?
Shifting market.
Shifting market, right. Okay, good. Changes happen at such a quick pace that owners are still thinking, hey, my buddy down the street sold their house for $350 3 months ago. I should be able to get X amount.
Well,
and things change rapidly, right?
Yeah, that, and you got, people trying to just take advantage of the coronavirus thing. Oh, well, houses should be cheaper now.
Right.
Just, give me a reason to make a change. And fortunately, we really haven't seen that take effect here yet.
Absolutely. Inventory is still down, so it's not magically. It's kind of it's like we get to explain the mathematical equation that there's limited supply, so that's the direct that has the majority influence on prices, and magically there's not an extra 2,000 homes sitting on the market. So you're exactly right. People will look to exploit. What about the challenge here? In this market, a yes on a contract is not as solid as a yes in another market. What does that mean? Opinions? Have you had anybody, either buyers or sellers, want to cancel a contract in the last, 2 months?
I had somebody that was thinking about it
Okay.
because they were upset that in this case, I represented the seller, and they felt like they were getting kind of nickeled and dimed throughout the process. And, but, they did end up hanging in there because they realized it would waste time putting it back on the market and what have you.
Right.
So
you're.
But on that one, I learned. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Hope.
No, I was going to say I learned a lot on that one watching the other agent because her client was a contractor and he did all of his own repairs. They forego a lot of the repairs. And so instead of getting an independent one, we got all the way to the FHA appraisal process and then had so many conditions that it was, it was difficult to pull that off. And then her client, sadly, his business had slowed being self-employed and they no longer qualified. So that was tough.
That's exactly, I think, a great scenario. It's not great that happened, but it's a good example of what I've seen. I was talking to some agents in Sierra Vista, and one of them had 6 DFTs, fallouts in 1 month. One of them fell out 2 days before closing because of the change of the VA lending rules regarding credit scores. And that is a kick in the gut, right? Anyone excited about getting something to 2 days before closing and seeing it fall apart? No.
No.
Not at all. So, but I think the more we understand the market of the moment, we heighten our sensitivity. I think David Jones would say your RAS is up, right? You're seeing certain things, and that way you can anticipate a move and try to head it off. And that's what really today is all about. There's 5 common problem areas. Buyer's remorse. Anybody have a great story with a client that signed a contract and suddenly, you know, they talked to their dad, uncle, whoever, and they're like, "You paid what for our house?" And how did you handle it? Nope.
I had one. So I had a buyer that wrote up a contract, and we submitted it. Then she checked the stock market, excuse me, and saw that her savings and her money that she had in the market wasn't nearly going to be as much. So she rescinded the offer because now it was eating up too much of her savings. And so they decided to wait until their other house sold instead of buying this one cash and then replenishing their funds once that's sold. So they rescinded the offer after already submitting it because of the stock market.
Wow. Okay. Anyone else?
I had one similar that was a cash offer, was going to be, we put it in, and then they rescinded it because it was their cash was their retirement, and they were buying a retirement home. And because of the COVID, they decided that they were going to wait until afterwards because that was their only reserves.
Right. Yeah, I think the financial aspect, I don't know, guys, I want to be 100% transparent, man. Reading the news, especially economic news right now is rough, right? There's glimmers of hope, especially in our industry, but just watching businesses crumble is upsetting. So I can totally get understanding where some of those people come from, although it's hard for us as a realtor, but sometimes we got to help them walk through that decision, right? Is it the best decision for you? David tells the story a lot where he was helping a couple and they were going to sell their home, and he found out what their payment was. And it's like, whoa, your payment's way lower than you're going to move to somewhere else. They were having some financial issues, and he's like, your best option is to stay. And that's where we come from, contribution and help. All right, let's look at this. Bulletproofing strategies, proactive prevention. What do you guys think about outcome framing? Seeing the end in mind and building everything to get along those rails to get to the end.
Yeah, if you paint a picture with your buyer or seller of, what the end, it's kind of like having that expectations conversation. Mm-hmm. I think the outcome framing is part of the expectations conversation where you say, hey, when we get to the end of this thing, here's what you're looking at as net, and then all the reasons why they're doing what they're doing. And it's all part of that. To me, it's part of that same discussion.
I would 100% agree, Larry. I love that that you could really tie these two together, right? Between the framing and the expectations. And that's really important. I skipped a slide. This is the buyer's remorse area. So we're kind of pushing through there. What does it mean to prepare alternatives?
Think ahead.
What happens, right? Would that be more important now or less important now?
More important now.
Yeah.
You have to do the what ifs.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then this last thing, reassuring, if Lisa was on here, Lisa had, she's got an emergency that she's handling right now. But I know that she would be saying this is the biggest point of a biggest strategy point is how are you staying on top of your buyers, reassuring them of where they're at in the process. changes the entire conversation with your buyers, correct? Have you guys ever had that experience where you've got that client that you're having to reassure daily that they made the right decision?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any of you other people, and how do you handle that?
Right now, I'm working with a young couple, and he was in the Marines. He got out, and then decided he wanted to buy a house after he got out. So, and he started a new job, and then that job was mostly almost like a self-employed, like subcontractor. So he didn't qualify through the VA lending rules.
Yeah.
So now he's got a different job, and he is going to qualify now. But the problem is, like you said, with the VA, there's a little bit of different things. So I'm just, holding their hand, encouraging them, working with the lender, pretty much on a daily basis. Hey, is there anything I can do? We're looking at houses online, and keeping them upbeat and encouraged. And he's doing very well. And I believe they're going to actually pre-qualify this week. So that's
Awesome.
the goal. But I've been working with them for actually a few months now.
Yeah. And that's, I think during a shifting market, we should know that it's going to take more of our time to get each transaction to close. Is that something we can all agree on?
Yeah, and one of the things that I had noticed, like I was working with a buyer 2 months ago, and they were so upset because they did not get a home that they really liked because it was in a floodplain zone, and therefore the flood insurance was high. We ended up not getting the contract. Now, yesterday, I just got in a new contract with a new construction. Because of the way things are right now, they're giving a lot of incentives. So for $10,000 less than what the other house is, bigger home, they were able to get more incentives, washer, dryer, plus closing costs because of the situation. So I told them, I said, look, this was meant to be, that we had to wait, but you got a better home.
That's right. You come out to be the hero. Look what you did, Misty. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's exactly where our follow-up strategies continuing on, getting to know this industry over the last 2 years. There's a lot of parallels with my previous careers, but you guys have to have an extreme amount of patience with your clients, right? We're not sure where they're coming from emotionally, especially right now. People are making interesting decisions and reacting in interesting ways because of the outside stressors. So we're taking that into account, and reassuring them and making sure that we're on track and doing fine is probably more important than ever, right? Next strategy, buyer's remorse triggers news reports, right? I mentioned that well-meaning family members and friends who say, you paid that much for the house? Imagine if someone had bought a house 20 years ago or even in 2013, let's say 2011 here in Tucson, which they got at the trough, right? The bottom, for you to say, you paid that much? It happens, correct? We all have those family members, those braggers.
Yeah.
Right?
When they say that, when I have a family member that says, wow, you paid a lot of money for that house, I always say, but look at the interest rate they got it at versus the interest rate 10 years ago. I mean, they may have the same amount of payment, but they have a bigger, better home.
That's a great way to respond, Misty.
I always use the hey, everything in real estate is relative. Doesn't matter what the price was 10 years ago. Doesn't matter what the price is today.
Right.
If you bought or sold in any of those different times, yes, the numbers were different. But let's take, for example, we bought a house for $150,000. Today it's $300,000. Well, that's at the same time that $150,000 home was comparable to other $150,000 homes. Today, $300,000. I mean, my house in Mexico was worth $300,000 at one point. I sold it for $110 because that's where the market was. But I was able to buy a $175,000 condo in Mesa for $75,000.
Yeah. Right.
So it's, markets are simply relative. Values are what the market values are today. And the old phrase, a house is only worth what a ready and willing buyer is willing to pay.
Right. Exactly. That's our job, right? So we talked about marking that moment, which I think is the framing discussion, right? Framing when they make the choice, this is the house. Like, this is the house. Misty, you were working with that client. That house in the floodplain had been that house, then it was pulled away, and then you were able to reframe it. Look at what happened. Now this is the house, and kind of like plant the flag that this is the place for them. It's fate.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I love their strategy. Close as soon as possible. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll do that. Well, we're going to close as soon as possible. What are you guys seeing timeline wise for closings? And obviously that is a big question because it could be cash buyers or, whatever, mortgages. Go ahead, Larry.
Oh, I thought somebody else was trying to jump in there. I think we're still working well within our 30 to 45 day frame. Most of the time, I think you're setting. I look at setting a slightly longer closing date, maybe 40 days or something, if we know that we're in a type of loan that's going to possibly need some time extension. Or there was a period of time a couple of weeks ago where the appraisers were so backed up.
Right.
It was just a matter of getting an appraiser out was instead of 4 or 5 days was 7, 10, 14 days. But, taking those things into account, but I still think, our general 30 to 45 is in place.
Yep. Or faster if it's cash buyer and there's pressing. I've seen some lenders be able to pull off some pretty quick stuff, but that is in an emergency rescue situation. So keep that in mind. What do you do? How do you mark the moment of victory? And I love this strategy. Write down how thoroughly you considered everything in the market and why this house is the one. So as you're showing your clients homes and they've made a decision, this is the home for us. Really writing down all those things so they can come back and look at that. And I was putting myself in that position. If I were starting to get scared, did we make the right decision? That's a lot of money. To be able to kind of walk through, and I don't know if you can read this, but it talks about during our buying our home at blah, blah, blah street is a great decision because we previewed 50 properties online. We looked at 20 houses from the outside. We toured the 10 best houses, and just step by step, reassuring your client that, yeah, they did in fact, make a well-informed decision. Anyone ever done anything like that? Or does anyone do that regularly?
With my buyers, I just had them have a list and attached it to the MLS listing for them. When we went to look at houses, I had them write like the 2 columns, the negatives and the positives, and kind of if any of them met what they were looking for, if anything checked off the boxes, and they actually went back to the very first house they looked at. So
yeah, interesting. That's a good way to do it. Anyone else?
With my buyers,
go ahead, Misty.
I said with my buyers, what I do is I always have them rate the homes up to 5 stars of why they choose. If it's a 5, it's because they want to write up an offer. If it's not, I always have them tell me what are the key things they like about the home, and then I would write them down so that I knew when that home came up. Some of my buyers, I end up finding a different home that they didn't even want to see because I had them rate them, and then I realized what was important to them.
Right. That's excellent. I think that's a great way to do it. Someone else was going to chime in?
I was just going to say I haven't done a transaction in the real estate world, but as an engineer and designer, I've used what I call a project activity log associated with whatever project I'm working on that tracks the time, the date, the time I've talked to them, what we discussed, action items, and then that action item list is attached to the back, and I keep it going, based on, so it's not something new to me, but I didn't think about doing it in association with this. So that's,
Yeah, that's, and you're going to do great with those engineering clients, because they're going to eat that up.
Yeah.
I love this antidote for buyer's remorse. You have to constantly resell buyers on their decision. Can I get an amen to that? Are you guys in agreement? Are you having to kind of reselling them all the time? Yes,
I remind them of, you know, when you're comparing houses, I remind them of what they said about other places, or, you know, kind of watch their reaction.
I think that
I got something for you, Jay.
Please do. Throw it out there, Dan.
So to touch on that, it's going to tie in the other one, the buyer remorse and the scripting to that. I ask buyers if there's a hint of a possibility where after they go into contract on a house, I'll say, you know what, you're going to get a lot of people that are going to influence your decision or give their opinion on the market and say that you paid too much for this house, or you could have got a better deal, or my cousin Vinny could do this, this, and this. And I challenge them and ask, what are you going to tell them? And what that does is it flushes out the agreement to a more stable place where you can weed out buyer remorse right away by challenging it right then and there and saying, you know, when you go home tonight, I want you to feel good about this, but you're going to run into some people that are going to have an opinion that you may have paid too much, or that this isn't the right time to buy, or the rates are stupid and you should just wait, or you should use my friend. What are you going to tell them? And what that does, it primes their brain for getting ready for the buyer's remorse. Because in the morning, you can hedge out. Hey, we already talked about all those things. You were super happy with this house. And then you, as like Missy said, you can go over the items that they 5-starred, and it really does, you know, set you up for success.
Yeah, you're not only framing, you're having them justify their decision and be ready to have a verbal conversation about that. That's great. That's a good point, Dan. Excellent.
Yeah, I had a client who, in that aspect, I had to completely take my opinion out of the whole deal, because the buyer reached out to me, said, Misty, I love this house. I want to go see it. I want to put an offer in it. And in the back of my mind, I was like, oh my goodness, this house needs so much work. I don't know. But one of the things that she had mentioned to me later after the fact is that I gave her space to walk the house freely, make her own opinions about the house without making judgments. And so sometimes I believe that it's important for a buyer to not have those judgments. Let them convince themselves it's the reason why they love that house. And then you just support all the facts. Like I did invoices. They said, are you sure? Okay, this is all the things that need to be done to the home. And once I eliminated all that, she still said, yes, I love the house. And in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, it's not going to appraise. I was so worried. Yeah. I already suspected the agent, hey, if it doesn't appraise, we're not going above it. And you know what happened? It appraised for $25,000 over our price. So I totally had to take my opinion out of the whole deal, and they appreciated that.
Awesome. That's great. It's good notes. All right. Anything else on the buyer side before we transition to seller side? Seller's remorse. What do you guys do when the seller's like, maybe we're selling it too low? I think if we just hold on, we could get more money.
Jay, I talk about what I call seller greed. Is I typically, when I get a house on the market, you get an offer day one. They're like, well, we got an offer so fast, why don't we wait and get another offer? And I talk to them about that beforehand, like doing like my seller's presentation. I talk about the process and the potentials of getting an offer quickly. And I make a joke out of it. I was like, guys, I may get your house sold before we even hit market with marketing. Now we can't really do that, but I'll say, I'm not going to charge you more for it. It makes them laugh, but it allows them to already get their brain thinking that it could be a quick process. Yeah. And then I actually talked to them about the seller's greed. As a guys, in my experience, I've met with sellers when they get an offer, they instantly think that because they got an offer, they can wait and get more. That's not always the case. Right. You have the potential of getting, a fish on the line. If you're going to go out there and try to get a bigger fish, you may end up with nothing.
Yeah. And as the clock, spins, you're watching the perceived value go down, right?
Absolutely.
We have those homes on the market that have been there, and you're like,
Yeah, I'll second what Dan is saying right there. My sellers on my current listing wanted to be pretty aggressive at the start. And then, of course, this whole coronavirus thing started. But they had started at 345 on their list. And I had told them that's probably high, but we'll test it. If it doesn't, we don't get, if we get views but no offers, that whole pitch, we need to start the price reduction. When the offer came in at 300, they were like, oh, no way. I said, okay, now hold on a second. We're in this coronavirus thing. You know, that's a great reason to say, you know, we may sit for months till we get another offer, especially if things get worse. We have an interested buyer, all that. We went back, they countered back at 310 and we got the deal. But I had to walk them through that. Do you want to keep paying your mortgage every month? Do you want to keep paying your property taxes? This house is just sitting here doing nothing, you know?
Awesome.
The only thing is the wife kicked in and said, well, then we'll just rent it out. And I stepped back and said, you guys had to go back to that end thing. You guys wanted this bag of cash out of this house so you could buy a property up in Phoenix that you could do as a rental, not here in Tucson where you have to drive 2 hours to deal with it.
Yeah. So,
but what Dan was saying is exactly right. You have to be aware of that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I like that you're bringing up the pain triggers too. Great job.
And on the slide here, I love that, you know, and you hit with that, Larry, discuss the risks of starting over. Both of you guys, actually. I mean, we have a fish in the hand. Why don't we work with these people? Let's not get emotional and make an emotional decision and like, no, let's think logically and how do we come to an agreement? Close as soon as possible. Reduce the time buyers and sellers have to second guess their decision. We don't want them hanging out, 60 days plus, because that's just more work for you. You're reassuring that person for longer periods of time, right? That's more work for us, correct? Bulletproofing strategies, early response. What is constant communication, especially in today's world? What does that mean to you guys? Being available? Or are you proactive?
I think setting parameters before you get going. On Monday, you can expect to hear from me regardless. Monday, like a Monday check-in, and then always letting them know what's next.
Right.
You know? So
Right.
I think to establish one day firm that you're definitely going to communicate early on. And then of course, as you're going through the Benzer and appraisal, almost daily or every other day is necessary.
Yeah.
Just letting them know you're available at that point.
Right. I think that's probably one of my most favorite features about the app. And I don't know necessarily if it's working 100% or not or what, but being able to set up all your entire sales system and procedure, both buyers and seller side, and having that custom guide. So as you're moving them along in command, they know where they're at in the process, because that is exactly where you're at with these 4 points here. You're communicating on their time whenever they want to see where they at. They've ordered the appraisal or whatever. Boom, boom. They're able to stay on top of it. How are you staying on top of their transactions to make sure you're communicating with them in a proper timeline? Smart people out there.
I have folders for my active buyers, and that is separate from my leads, and then obviously I'm putting them in command, and I'm going to continue to do that. Also, I'm putting them in dot loop and just the system. Yeah, using the system.
You have a systematic approach.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Do you do anything specific that would be helpful to share with the rest of us in what you've added to your system?
I use the Folio program, and that works quite well.
Folio?
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe what it does? I'm not familiar with it.
It's attaches to your Google email, and you can create folders where you keep all of your documents in there and managed by Folio. And then one of the features that they have for communication is a calendar. So you set in there when your contract date is, when your inspections are going to be held, when the Benzer is due by, when the seller needs to respond by, etc., and your anticipated closing date, etc. So then you can update on there if you are in progress or if that's been completed. And then they have a visual timeline of where they're at in the process, what needs to be done still. and they can have more confidence that you are in process of working on
Right.
the items behind the scenes.
Awesome. So it automatically communicates with them as you update the folio.
Correct.
Awesome. That's lovely. That's a great tool. So I would say investigate that, guys. Take a look at it. That's good. Anything else that you guys want to, that we need to discuss on this slide? Contract to close tracking. That's exactly what she was talking about. We do have a tendency. I think there's a mindset tendency for our clients, right? They think if they're not talking to you on the phone or you're not in their presence, that you're off on vacation, right? You're not handling other things. So making sure that they understand that you're working for them and you're meeting all these expectations is a vital point. Am I correct or incorrect with that?
Yeah. I'm going to jump in with one last thing. I use every step of the process. I consciously, will inform my client what took place, or if it's a form they signed, if they signed off on the BINSR, if they had to sign another document somewhere, if there's an addendum, something like that. Every single communication, I always end with what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a self-reminder to check to what's next, make sure everything else is covered, but also letting them know, here's what you can expect next. And in the case of my current buyer, who's a first-time buyer, I'm communicating almost every 2 days.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good. And I know that they're appreciative of that. What works when your buyers change their minds about buying a house? We kind of discussed that a little bit. I think we're reassuring them of what they want.
Right. If something has changed or they have made a shift in what they're interested in, I would recommend sitting down again and deciding what's important. Something came up recently. I was helping an agent from out of town showing homes, and their financial situation had changed, but yet they still wanted what they wanted on the northwest side of town for $200,000, and land, a little bit of land. And I just asked the question, have you considered, other areas of town where you could get land? Have you considered a manufactured home? And they hadn't thought about that. And it was just something that came up when we were previewing a couple homes. Again, I didn't know them. I was helping out with another agent, but just realigning expectations, because people's lives change almost on the daily these days.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it. I would agree with you 100%. All right. So
I had a buyer who wanted to change their mind. We put an offer on a house that it was their dream house. The seller decided he had a life change and didn't want to sell the house anymore. So I asked the agent, please call me if it comes back on the market. He said, sure. Well, we didn't hear back. Another home came on the market. They put an offer on it. As soon as the offer got accepted, the other home came on the market. And my buyer was like, Misty, I want this other house. And I had to tell them, look, the other house is $25,000 more, the one that you're buying, that you have mountain views. Can you take the $25,000 and do those cosmetic work? And so yeah, that they had to rethink that whole. They really had that mindset. They wanted the other home because of all the cosmetic work, but they didn't realize how much savings they were doing because they were buying the house cheaper.
Right. So there you're playing counselor, right? Okay, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work through
that. Was one day after I had a contract that other house came on the market. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. Good job negotiating that and navigating it. So let's talk about inspection and repairs. Just currently, I'd love to have kind of a poll here is inspections. Are we seeing inspections coming in at price, or are we seeing coming in low?
That sounds more like appraisals as opposed to inspections.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's correct. Appraisals.
Mine just came in on number. Thankfully, I was worried.
I was thinking about David asked that in that question last week, and I think we're seeing that. We're not seeing a ton of low appraisals right now. Is anyone else seeing that? No? Okay,
Well,
good.
I haven't.
Okay,
There
good.
was talk in the team meeting, our team meeting yesterday, appraisals to some degree, and that there have been a rash of them coming in low. You know, it's a hit and miss, I think, at this point.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, inspection and repair, our most favorite topic, right? Everyone excited about benders and all that fun stuff? How do you have the conversation with your sellers? Prepare sellers for what to expect in your market. What's going on? What are you guys seeing? What are people asking for? What's going on in that world?
I'll speak. I'm getting a laundry list. I'm getting between 5 and 15 things done that they want done. So
Wow.
That's been a little bit rough. At part of the negotiating.
Right. That would seem to be counterintuitive to it. We're in a seller's market, right? You would think that buyers would be more inclined to come to the table with less demand so that their offer would be the one that gets accepted.
Right.
Logically. But are we not seeing that?
I got something for you on that, Jeff. The problem is the offer's already accepted at that point, and the buyers feel like they have the ability to over negotiate during the Binzer period because we're not doing a good enough job of setting up that expectation. And I'm seeing on just all the contracts I review and overlook for the other agents, I see a lot of stuff that you could clearly see at the time of first inspection. Like when you're walking through the house before you put the offer in, you can tell that there's these issues, but they're being put on there. And that's why buyers are asking for so much, is because we've kind of allowed it in the marketplace where even though it's a seller's market where you get the offer up front, they're trying to position it where they're like, yeah, I'm going to give them full price, but we're going to get it back in the inspections.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually heard that statement be used too.
Right. How are you overcoming that? How are you advising your buyers?
So it all starts with a buyer consultation. I have a discussion with them. I let them know that, hey, we're going to look like major concerns. The exact script. We're looking for major concerns with safety, structural, and mechanical items that we could not see during the time that we were in the house. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I was like, if anything that's massively wrong that we cannot see when we go and look at the house, we'll have the opportunity to do inspections on the property, and we have the ability to ask the seller to rectify or remedy the items that we disapprove. Now, I will caveat that the seller has no obligation to repair anything. Right. Do you understand? And I just move forward, and then I touch on them again. So, and it even says like that, the seller has no obligation. And then you get buyers all the time. They're like, well, they have to fix it, right? No, they don't have to do anything. So
that's a great way to make sure that you're getting everything framed up, as we discussed earlier, really getting clear expectations. So that's a great. What about on the buyer side? So we just talked about that. And when you have issues that pop up, I love this, recommend inspectors you trust. That is not an option in our state, correct? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I just recommend 3 and told them they're, have every right, to pick anybody out of the phone book, whatever they want to do. It's their decision. I give them 3 and they picked 1. So.
Okay. Anything, the point here, remind buyers that inspectors document everything they see, everything, kind of like what Dan was just talking about. We're looking for big ticket items. That 4th point, help buyers focus on the big picture and the important issues. That's where your skill set of being able to frame the conversation and the expectations up front, I think, is just critical.
Yeah, I just went through that again with this current deal that I'm doing. I had to, my sellers spent 5 months renovating the house. So by the time they get done, they thought everything was perfect. But I had to tell them, no, look, when inspectors come through, their job is to point out anything and everything that is slightly off or a safety hazard. So prepare yourselves. I know you guys have done all this work, but prepare yourselves. We'll have to see what those inspection reports come back with. Well, Lo and behold, there were electrical issues, and we had dry wood termites.
Oh, wow.
Not the subterranean, but dry wood. That means we have to tent the house.
Wow. And that's not inexpensive.
$3,000.
Yeah. Yikes. Do you guys go to all your inspections?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would.
Mhm.
Okay. So what do you think about this list of your goals when you're attending the inspection? Or what?
I just go back. I go back into the same conversations I had. I ask questions up front. I only recommend inspectors that I know they're going to hold my values and my expectations in place. And I reiterate with them that we're looking for major concerns with safety, structural, mechanical issues that we did not see during the time we offered on the house. That just kind of eliminates. And then the inspectors are usually go through, it's like, yeah, I'm going to point out everything that I find, but I will highlight the things that I consider to be major issues or safety concerns, and we'll discuss it at the end.
Yeah.
And it walks them through the process. It's all about communication, letting them know what's going to happen, what's to be expected, and what we're going to do and what our obligations are for each step.
I love that, Dan, because my first, sale was new first-time home buyers. And I thought, they were going to faint when they got the inspection report because there's so much on it. And then I had to calm them down and assure them that, come on, a switch plate crack, this is not a major thing. Let's really look at everything. So that's like Dan said, just coaching them, reassuring them. So that's, I love that.
Absolutely. And the point here in the red at the bottom, don't let the inspection become a reason to back out of a contract. It's our job to reassure, make sure we're protecting them, but help them make the best decision. Negotiation, exactly what you were talking about, Dan. Find out how much repairs cost and list other agents as your ally. Is that, give me a story or so where your conversations with the other agent has helped walk through and get the deal to close.
I can go on that one. Again, in this deal that I'm in, the inspection report had the summary report, which points out safety and or things that should be handled. That list was 55 items long. Whoa. And with a good conversation with the other agent and, explaining to her all of this stuff, by the end of the conversation and by the time that we got the Binzer, there were 4 items on it.
Oh, wow. Anybody else?
Well, I have a pretty recent one too, Jay. I got the Binzer back and there were 10 items that needed to be repaired or replaced. And my client, being the seller, didn't want to do anything. So we agreed we were kind of coming to terms with what a dollar amount might look like. And thankfully, she prepared that upon submitting the Binzer for review. So I think they had it in the back of their mind, it might go that way. So even though her client really wanted everything done, we were able to bridge it.
So awesome. I want to touch on that too, because they're able to bridge stuff. I try to alleviate Hope and I talked about this transaction, and like she's doing some repairs and some discount, and I try to not do that. So it muddies up the water. If you're going to do a repair, do a repair. If you're going to do discount, do the discount, or sorry, the seller concessions. In my situation, I've actually gone back to my initial thing. So I'm telling, as a listing agent, I'll tell the buyer's agent, like, listen, guys, these were all things that you could see at the time you made your offer. Your clients were fully informed of what was happening in the house or what was there in the house before you ever put your offer in. Now, this item, this item, this item are considered safety concerns, and I will address that with the seller. And this item, this item, this item are actually upgrades based on the year the house was built, blah, blah, blah. Like knowing that information. And I push back on the buyer's agent and say, listen, I'm not just going to roll over and take your menu to my sellers and say, this is the menu they want us to agree to, and then come back to, I'm not a middleman. I go through and I'm going to fight up front. I'm going to find the items that I can absolutely, cut off right now.
Yeah.
And I had a house the other day where they wanted me to wrap the AC lines, repair the roof, install a light switch in an attic, install a GFCI in a bathroom, and something they wanted me to lift the water heater. Something ran. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, okay, none of that is a major concern. The only thing, no, the electrical was the attic had an open wire box that needed to be plugged, and they wanted a licensed electrician to do that. And I called up the agent. I said, actually, the insulation wrapping around the AC lines was not done at the time this house was built. That would be an upgrade. The thermostat you want me to replace would be an upgrade. The water heater would be an upgrade because it was built that way. And I went down the list, and we wound up getting by with the Binzer without $1 out of the seller's pocket because the roofing issues, the roof had a 10-year warranty on it from Lennar, and we had 1 year left. So I went back and said, hey, seller, call Lennar. I know you have a roof warranty. They'll replace the cracked tiles for free.
Yeah.
And the seller was really concerned about the rest of it. What do I do? I don't want to pay an electrician. And I was like, well, all you need to do is, as they say, cap off the wires and install properly. We're going to counter back and say that all work will be done in accordance to the contract in a workman's-like manner. We will cap off the wires and secure them in the box correctly, and we will replace the broken and cracked roof tiles on the roof through Lennar's warranty. That's it. And the buyer, because it was like, she was like, oh crap, he knows what he's talking about. We're not going to get it. I had no fight back. It was an instant, like, okay, no problem. Thank you. Well, I'll tell my buyers that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And we just move forward. But it's knowing what items are major concerns and what are actually upgrades.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's ultimately our responsibility to our sellers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Home warranty. Helpful tidbit. Are you guys always suggesting home warranties for your buyers?
Jason, you want to talk about that one?
Jason, you got a home warranty story?
Yeah, we've had to use it quite a bit. It's actually, I haven't sold a house yet, but I would highly recommend it. We put it on for my mom's house, and just the other day I was trying to cap something, the hose that goes to the fridge. I tried to cap it, but they were really old pipes, and when I tightened it, it exploded. Dan was able to call the home warranty, and they came out that day and fixed it. And there was something else that home warranty also fixed, but I don't remember. Oh, water heater. Yeah, home water heater. So definitely recommend home warranty.
Yeah. Are you guys, you other agents, are you suggesting home warranties every time?
Always.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. That's good to know.
So to put a dollar figure to it, Jason, I'm talking to Jason because he's sitting right outside of my office. We're 15 feet away, social distancing. We had a bid, we'd gotten the home warranty. We'd forgotten about it. We had the water heater was leaking. We knew that on the inspection, but it wasn't leaking when we listed the house. It started recently. They wanted $1,800 to repair and replace the water heater. And for the service cost of the home warranty, the seller was able to get out of that for $180.
Oh, wow.
And that's why I like it. And plus the plumbing work that was done on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was, would have been a couple $100 and $75, and that's it. So it's been pretty impactful stuff. And the home warranty saved it in $210 all the way.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Last little section here.
I have a question for Dan real quick on that home warranty.
Go ahead.
For my understanding, you can't put a claim for 30 days. So was your home on the market for 30 days before you put a claim in?
If you have seller's coverage on the house, seller's coverage starts from the moment you get seller's coverage and put in.
Interesting.
And
that's good to know.
I called Heather Chamberlain Rich and said, hey, this is the situation. We went live on Thursday. We had, the homeowner went out there, checked on it. We've lost water pressure. We have no hot water. And we've got an issue with our water tank on Monday. They came out on Tuesday and replaced it on Wednesday.
Excellent.
I think that's great.
That's good to know.
Yeah, again, there's seller's coverage, and then there's the year of coverage after the house closes to the buyer's benefit. So there's two pieces to that puzzle, and talk to Heather about it. She can make it make sense to you.
Yeah, the seller's coverage just starts the clock on that 30-day for the buyer window. In the event that you guys have a buyer concern, from experience, call Heather directly. She is a fantastic partner of ours, and they do anything they can to help get us along in a little bit better situation.
Hey
Excellent.
Dan, do you think that would be good to even when you're doing a listing presentation to say, hey, here's a 210 home warranty and this is going to cover your home as a seller while it's on the market?
It is absolutely part of the seller's packet that I use, and because it's already pre-marked on all my contracts. So what is this? I'm not going to offer a home warranty, and I'll tell them it's like 90% of the buyers in the market today are advised to buy a home warranty, and this seller coverage is free to you until we close. In the event that something happens, why wouldn't you have that protection? Plus, we get to market your house that has a home warranty, and the seller's like, okay. And then I've actually got a real life story of a deal personally to me that I can help with, because I'm helping sell Jason's mom's house, but I'm allowing him to be kind of the back end to know what we're doing, so he learns a little bit better. So when he is fully licensed, he can run, and he's already got, this has been one of the toughest deals I've ever done. He's got those buckets of knowledge of going through the firefight right next to me. So it's real life stories. And I've even told people, use this story with your sellers. And Kim Esteo actually picked up 2 listings from it.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. All right, last little topic, and we're going to wrap up here. What's going on in funding? I don't think Deb is on the call today, but make sure, obviously, you're going to use a reputable and trustworthy lender. Hopefully, you would not be doing that. We have lots of them available. Any experience with Keller Mortgage?
Yes.
With any of you guys in here?
Yep. I've got a Keller Mortgage deal right now.
Give me a real quick analysis.
Loving it. First of all, it's the only way that made the buyer able to buy the house that we're in because of the fees being saved. In this deal, I think it's $2,388 or something like that being saved. No lender fee, no underwriting fee, no processing fee with Keller Mortgage. Plus, any loan over $150,000, there's another $1,000 bonus toward closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only way that made this deal work with my buyer with the money they have in the bank to bring to closing. Those fees made the difference between being able to do the deal or not being able to do the deal.
Excellent.
And the communication is amazing. I've got an agent that a loan officer I can call anytime and get an answer within an hour or two.
Nice. Very
Yeah,
good.
I also love them and used them with my buyers. They did VA, and I asked them to compare Keller Mortgage with USAA, because they had USAA with all their car insurances and everything, and they did. And Keller Mortgage actually saved them quite a bit of money. And so I'm telling my clients that they're free to get anyone they trust or want, but please give Keller Mortgage an opportunity, because I really firmly believe that they're going to save them some money. So
yeah, excellent. That's great. It should definitely be a tool in our box that we're using to help us. And Larry, exactly what you said, a tool that helps you get to a deal that you wouldn't be able to get to.
And they do have excellent communication.
Yeah, right. Buyer side, make sure your buyers are pre-approved. We're working on that, right? We're not taking people off unless they're pre-approved, correct?
Correct.
Offer names of 2 or more reputable lenders. I'm going to throw a subtle thing in here. You're going to hear more about lending from the KWSA side of things in the near future. So keep your ear to the ground. It's going to be really some interesting stuff that's going on. So obviously advise your buyers to keep their finances in good shape. We know those things. The difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved, that's one of those lessons we learned real quick, right? We want to make sure that we have, we're not taking anyone and doing anything unless they're pre-qualified, and then we're moving them to be pre-approved. I love this. The 10 commandments of the loan application: don't change jobs. Have you guys seen this before? And how do you advise your buyers regarding this?
Read the list.
give them the list of, like, here, don't do these things. I didn't know if there was a little way that you gave them a printout and say, hey, here's the things that you cannot and you do not want to do unless you don't want to get this home. Don't change jobs. Don't buy a car, truck, or van. Don't use your credit cards excessively. Don't spend money you have set aside for closing. I suspect we've seen that before. Don't omit debts or liabilities from your loan application. That will certainly slow you down. Don't go buy furniture. I thought that was interesting. I'm suspecting they're saying go buy furniture on credit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't originate any inquiries into your credit. Hey, this is a time. Let's think about refinance. Whatever. Don't make large deposits without checking with your loan officer first. Anyone have that experience where they're like, hey, where'd this money come from? Yeah. I was talking to Cindy Subia last week. She's with Sunstreet, and she had a client, and they were like, oh, yeah, I think he got a lump sum buyout or something like annuity. I can't remember now, but deposited without them knowing. And they're something like, whoa, hold up. What is going on here? Don't change your bank accounts, and then don't co-sign a loan for anyone. We don't want to do that. And we are not going to walk through the appraisals. Let's move down here to the end. Talk about communication in our last few minutes here. Stay in communication as soon as contract is signed with the escrow officer. You're communicating with your other vendors involved. I love Megan's her system of having the Folio app. I believe that command is coming along rather quickly. That's able to help us be able to stay in contact as you build these phases out in your opportunities. You're going to be able to create tasks for these types of things. So I'm excited about that as well. What questions should you ask to avoid problems in the contract to close process? We're going to roll through that since everybody's like, huh? I'm not sure what it's.
Are you saying asking questions of the lender, or
I think of the other the escrow officers or the people that are doing surveys and other vendors. But I quite frankly, I don't understand the question as well. If you're doing its point is what kind of systems are you building in to communicate with every person involved in the transaction? So the contract to the close, how are you making sure that you're communicating with the inspector and everyone else that's involved? So what Megan was saying, she uses that app that can continually updates and communicates with her client. I'm saying it from what I've seen, because we haven't switched to opportunities, but playing around in opportunities and watching other market centers, you're able to build out the phases and to create tasks so that you're automatically doing that. So when you move someone into the inspection period, it's going to create a task, contact inspector, blah, 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 and it's going to populate into your task menu.
Yeah, command's going to literally cover every step of the process with a customizable checklist.
Yep. And we're real quick update. You heard Lisa say that. We're back online. I think you're going to hear us make that transition sooner than later, definitely within this year. So it's coming. Bottom line, communicate often with all the key people, right? Spend plenty of time with your customers. Sounds like Dan and Larry and Teresa and Misty and Hope, you guys are all doing that in a great way. Handle or closely oversee the contract to close process. Make sure you understand. You're on top of that. You're the professional. Anticipate problems and take preventative action to avoid them. Don't just, hope's not a strategy, right? We're not, well, I hope it'll work out. Let's not let that be to chance. Let's work through that. Understand the mindset of buyers and sellers. We had that discussion. Look for creative solutions. And then the final thing is never give up. Don't give up on this transaction. In a shifting market, getting to this point is gold. We want to continue to get it to close. Don't just, although probably tempting sometimes, it's easy, just like I'm just turning my back on it and moving on to the next thing. Don't give up. Help your people get to close. Any questions or comments right at 12 o'clock?
Great class. Thank you.
Yay. All right, guys, you'll have a great day. I hope you don't experience any of these negative things. Have a great day. Excited about both next week. I'll see you there.
Bye.
Also, everybody, and just note that 1 o'clock is the Facebook ad thing with Jesse Rojas.
With Jesse. Good plug, Larry. Thank you. All right, see you guys.